Chris, some people have questioned whether the size of the UK banking system poses a material risk to economic stability. You've written an article which sheds some light on this issue.
That's right. Many of the advocates of the view you mentioned start with the experience of the recent crisis, which started in the financial system, which then spread to cause the deepest and most prolonged economic downturn since the Great Depression. But a counter view argues that what is most important is not the size of the banking system per se, but how resilient it is to withstand a downturn in economic or financial conditions. Our article is an attempt to critically assess which of these views is right.
So how big is the UK banking system?
The UK banking system is very large. On a residency basis, which covers assets located in the UK, regardless of the nationality of the ultimate owner, the total assets of the UK banking system have grown from around 100% of nominal GDP in the mid-1970s to around 450% of GDP today. That puts it well ahead of other major economies. As a share of GDP, that would put it approaching twice the size of the German banking system and more than 6 times the size of the US banking system.
And could it get bigger?
It could. In the article, we set out a simple thought experiment which asks, how big could the UK banking system become as the world economy grows and emerging economies such as China and India become richer and increase their demand for financial services? Based on a set of simple assumptions, we estimate that the UK banking system could almost double its size from today to over 950% of nominal GDP by 2050. Of course, as we stress in the article, there are lots of uncertainties around our approach, but what it does show is that based on a set of plausible assumptions, the UK banking system could continue to grow very rapidly.
So why is the banking system so big?
Well, that's a complex question that's not fully understood, both in terms of which factors drive the size of a banking system and also how important they are. One reason could be that the UK is able to produce banking services more efficiently than other countries. So in other words, we have a comparative advantage in banking services. The reasons behind that might be the UK's location in terms of its central time zone, for instance, and its language.
Would another reason be that over time the UK banking system may have benefited from people with financial expertise and finance-related firms clustering together?
Well, you do find that financial activity is concentrated in financial centres. The benefits of clustering are present in many industries, not just in finance. For instance, the Chinese city of Chaotou produces 60% of the world's buttons, 80% of the world's zips. And back in the early 20th century, Lancashire was home to 50% of the world's cotton spindles.
So the UK then is one hub of financial activity?
London is one of the world's largest financial centres. In the article, we document how the emergence of London as a financial centre in the 19th century owed a lot to the UK's position as the world's largest trading nation, as well as down to a great deal of luck.
Besides the comparative advantage and this tendency for financial activity to cluster together, what else might be a factor behind the size of the UK banking system?
In the article, we discuss another factor, which is the so-called implicit subsidy that banks receive from governments in times of stress, which means that banks' funding costs are cheaper than they otherwise would be.
And this implicit subsidy is large then?
It is, in the order of tens of billions of pounds a year. But evidence suggests that it's not larger than for other banking systems, for example, the euro area. So it can't explain why the UK has a relatively large banking system.
I see. Now, your article also looks at the link between the size of the banking system and financial stability.
That's right, and returning to where we started the discussion, the main finding here is that while the size of the banking system is important, it's the resilience of the banking system which is key. And that's why the Bank of England, along with other organisations, is pursuing a wide range agenda to improve the resilience of the banking system, including eliminating the implicit subsidy, which I mentioned earlier.
Excellent. Chris, thanks very much.
Thanks.